Okay, one last corner, so we're going to come in and miter this corner out. And I always like to strike a pen line to give me just the direction I'm going to miter it. I already know it's 45 degrees, but sometimes from here over to the saw I'll get confused and I'll forget, and either I have to come back and redo it or I'll cut the damn thing wrong. So, hey, it's better to be safe than sorry. A little strike that says, oh, 45 degrees goes that way, and we're pretty well set to go.
Now, yesterday, Patty, she spent, a number of hours grinding away at this 10-foot pole that's going to be one of the legs of the sign, and got a pretty rough grind out of it. And I'm going to kind of drop you in here a little closer so you can see. Yeah, pretty rough grind. And while she was doing that, I'm thinking, Jesus, she's working so hard. We got to figure out some way where she's not going to, work so hard. And so toward the end of the day, my brain finally kicked in, and I said, hey, why don't we just put it in the lathe, and we'll use my steady rest, which is the first time I've used it, actually. It came with the lathe, and it's been sitting there collecting dust for, I don't know, 3 or 4 years now that I've had the lathe. So we took off the I can't remember what it's called. The back part of the lathe. Anyhow, we took it off and put the steady rest on and dropped this pole all the way out. And last night, while Patty wasn't here, of course, I'm going to just kind of swing us around a little bit. I went in and just polished just this one area in about, 10 minutes. And it came out really nice. I'm going to bring it in closer. Let's see if we can get a good shot of it. That's better. But you can see the difference between that and that. I'm not sure if it's clear enough, but hey. So when she gets back in today, we're going to go ahead and work on this pole in the lathe, cranking it up and letting the lathe spin. And I'll go ahead and crank it up a little bit. And just letting it spin and grind it while it's spinning. So that ought to do something. Well, it sounds like our piece of angle is finished, so I'll go ahead and drag that over there and see what we can do with it. So while I get to do all the fun stuff with this process, here's Patty standing here at the helm of this real thing, doing all of the really, really hard stuff. Grinding, ever grinding. And she's gotten it down now to where she's getting a really good job. Look at that. Very nice. Very smooth. So, keep going at it, Patty.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Right. That's good. Okay.
Can I keep grinding?
Yes, grind. Show these folks how you grind. How well. Hour after hour after hour. Never seems to end. And there's more to come. Today's project is these little louvers. And you probably can't notice it at this point, but as we pull back, you will see that if the box that's down, the louvers are in backwards. And boy, I tell you, I measured, I checked, I double-checked, I triple-checked, and I still got it backwards. So, but it's not a disaster, it's just a glitch, and it's probably going to take a day to do this, but basically what I'm going to do is take a hole saw and saw that out, pop the center out, turn it around, put it back in, and weld it back up. So that's the beginning of today.
And I've been thinking about this all weekend, and you know, it's going to be an okay thing. I got 2 of them to do. The other side went in beautifully. No problems. Well, I cut the circles out and turned them around and welded them back in, and totally forgot to crank up the camera. So what you get is the end result of these 2 pieces getting turned around. But you know, hey, sometimes I just get going so fast. So let's just start with what Patty's done with this 4-inch pole, 4-inch by 3/8 inch thick wall. She's just really polished this surface to just a high polish. Now they wanted 180 grit circular orbital finish, and she's just really obtained that. It's just beautiful. There's a couple little areas here that need just a little bit more work, but I'm guessing she's going to come back to that. But you can really just see this thing is sweet. And also earlier today we went to Sacramento and picked up the materials we need to do the rest of the project, actually. Let's come over to here, and you can see this U-channel is the actual glass to door contact. And what we've done is we've put a little gasket in there, and then that's going to slide down and push down into that nice and stiff, and that just perfect, just come out just right. So we just basically need to take that and cut those up into lengths and put a 45 degree cut on each end, you know, precise 45 degree cut on each end, of course, and then and we're ready to roll with those. Oh, and then we weld those little tabs on the bottom side of the little U-channel, and then it bolts to the main door. So just at this point, we're ready to just start moving forward and cutting and grinding, and you know, the same pretty much as we've done, but you know, it's really starting to kind of take shape. The next part that just came in was the sign, which is this big 45 by 45 inch pan that all I need to do really is to to weld the corners, and then drill a couple of holes in there, and you know, do some setup for the pan itself, and then it's ready to go too, and then basically weld that to the whole structure as soon as we get both poles done. And as I said, Patty's got one pole done, and probably the other pole's 3/4 of the way done. So you know, we're moving right along here, and we have about 20 days left before this is due. So that is what we've got. So we've got a 45 cut here, and we did that on the mill just to get a real accurate 45, but we've got a very sharp edge right there. And what it's going to go into is this pan over here, and I'll show you that in a minute, that's got welded corners. So there's a kind of a roundness to it. So basically what I'm going to do is come in and just round off this edge here on the plate. Pretty simple, no big deal, just kind of getting a little radius there so that when it goes into that corner it'll be nice and flush with that weld. So we welded that corner, and now we're cutting into pieces at angle to go into that corner, and these are basically the supports for the door. And So you can see the angle is going to kind of go into that corner. It looks like I might actually need to take a little bit more out in order, a little bit more of a radius here in order to get it to slide into that corner a little tighter. So I think I might just go ahead and do that, just get a little bit more radius. Okay, we ground just a little bit more radius off of that edge right there, and we'll drop this in there and see how that's going to match up. Yeah, much better. And so our line here meets about halfway into the center of that. And that's what we were looking for. Okay, now so basically at this point we're going to go over to the other side, way over there, 45 inches away, and we're going to measure and cut that edge back over there at 45 degrees and get a hopefully an exact measurement and bring that in and cut it and trim it, and hopefully it'll fit. Well, it'll fit. So I'm noticing that as I set this in here, that the pan itself has a nice big radius right here. So once it gets down there a little bit, it starts to hit up against the radius. So basically, it's not too much of a problem. Probably what's going to happen is I'll just go ahead and radius this out here, and you know, and then that'll kind of get away from it. And then once I weld it in, it'll be in place, and I think everybody will be happy. But I am a little worried about how deep it is. There's some engineering issues here. We'll figure it out. Okay, so I'm going to measure from this edge here to this edge here, this corner right here. And normally I just use a pretty wide felt tip pin, but this time I'm moving into a very sharp felt tip pin so I can get an exact measurement. And then basically we're going to just kind of nudge our way up to it to get it right once we put it in the mill. All right. Okay, we got everything tacked together and ready to go. Now I'm going to put some a little bit heavier welds in, maybe little 1-inch lengths all throughout to kind of get everything locked into place before I run my full welds. So we'll go ahead and get started on that. Looks like we've dropped down just a little bit. I think one of these little welds
these little tacks broke, and it's separated just a bit down in here. So I'm going to go ahead and clamp that back up and get a good weld in there. Okay, at this point, and as I said, this thing probably weighs about 150, 175 pounds. I barely got it up vertical like this, but now I can run a full pass on these bottoms and maybe even do the verticals, and then we'll have to flip it over and do the uppers because, well, maybe I'll give it a try. Overhead welding isn't my forte, but you know, whatever. All right, so we'll crank up the welder. And start in. And we'll probably save you all the gory details of welding here. Okay, we've got the pipe rotator, and it turns out that I ordered the wrong size. So what we're going to do is cut it and cut a section out and bring it up to temperature and see if we can forge that thing back together again and bring it down to the right size. So, let me slow this thing down a little bit. So first thing we got to do is cut it. A lot of oil, and then basically just crank on it. Oops. Any second now it's going to fall off. There it goes. Okay. Little extra ring for fun, and we can pull this ring off, and let's just see how it goes. Okay. So in this little experiment, we're going to go ahead and split this thing lengthways and take a section out, maybe an inch or so, and then heat this whole thing up and attempt to forge it back into shape. Now I've done it with smaller pieces, but I don't know about this big old honking piece, but it's worth a try.
Roll it.
Okay, so we ordered a piece of metal that was a little bit too big around. Numbers just kind of looked right by me. And, but ways of dealing with that don't slip by me. This is one way of dealing with it. We're going to heat this up. And we're going to bring it up to a nice red hot temperature, which is almost there. And then I'm going to just forge it into a smaller piece of round stock, and then just weld up the corner and machine it off a little bit, and I think we'll have it. At least one always hopes.
Did you use a mathematical formula to know how much to cut out?
Well, pi.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting it down to a little bit smaller. It looks like it's doing it beautifully. See if it fits over the top of this. Oh man, look at that. Well, it doesn't fit, but
Amazing.
that's good because then I can just machine it out. And I think we've got pretty much a circle here. A little bit more pounded maybe. Pull it out a little bit. I think that's pretty much going to do it. Let's see what this side looks like. Yeah, this side's a little bit worse shape. But hey, let's show off the best side first. How's that? Okay, let's go here. So we got almost a perfect circle there. Not too bad.
Good.
And this side needs a little bit of help. I hate these pliers. I couldn't find my other ones. These are good pliers for fixing washing machines, but not for doing forging. Okay.
So we got it running as true as we can get it for a piece that's been beat up by a hammer and put on the anvil, and so, but it's looking pretty good. So now we come in with a boring bar and bore out the interior just enough so that this smaller pipe will fit inside. And then we reverse it and grab it from the inside and clean up the exterior. So hey, onward. And just come in and just kiss it to and let it run. Whoop. Just in case there's some big lumps in there and you don't want to grab anything too quickly. So far it looks pretty good. Now when I calculated this with using pi of all things, it works every time. It's amazing. It ended up calculating that I would take 2 inches out of it, and I took the 2 inches out, and it came out almost perfect. I mean, actually perfect, because I wanted it to be a little small so I could machine it out and get a nice even fit. And since this is my first pass, I don't know where this thing should end. So I left myself a little bit of a gap between the chuck and the piece, so that it'll skip out, and I'll stop hearing that squeal, and it'll tell me that it's ready. And there you go. And just to make it easy on myself, I like to use my carriage stock. Came with the lathe, and I am so glad it came with it because I use it all the time. So let's take 20,000 and trim that out. A little bit of oil. It looks like it's pretty much catching it all the way, almost all the way at this point. So that's nice. Just for yucks, let's go ahead and see if this thing's going to fit inside. Pretty close, pretty close. We got another cut or two and we're ready to go. It wants to fit. We'll give it another pass or two. This time we're going to slow it down a little bit so it'll get it smoother. So it'll cut smoother. You can kind of look in there. You can see it's almost like a record groove. So let's take another pen. As far as I can hear, that thing's pretty much catching it all the way except right at the weld. thing is they're going to put this pipe inside of that pipe. It's going to rotate one time till they get it adjusted where they want it. They're going to drill a hole through it, and that it'll sit there for the next millennium. Almost. I'm thinking I'll take another pass without changing the settings, just because there's a lot of spring in the boring ball. You can see it's probably taking another 5-10 thousandths right there. So anyhow, we're not going to get much rotation on this thing except for that, minute and a half that they decide which way how the monitor is going to rest. And so we're not really looking for a tight tolerance here. It's just enough so that it can rotate without causing any, undue stress on whoever's rotating it. That quarter turn. There we go. Nice and smooth. Okay. So we'll square up this outer edge here, and so that when we rotate this thing around, when we rotate it around, it'll sit up against the chuck nice and evenly. But right now it's not exactly even. Seems like whenever I forge, the edges never quite match up. As much as I try, they just don't. I think it has to do with hammer marks and stuff like that stretch the metal one way or the other. But I just leave a little room for adjustment there, and everything's fine. Let's see what we got here. Got a big skip. Not bad, though. Oh, that's a little better. Now, I think this is probably going to be the last pass. We got a little bit of a skip there, but I think we're going to be able to live with that. come in with my little deburring tool and just kind of pick it, get myself a nice little chamfer going there, and we're ready to spin this thing around. So the two pieces I forged yesterday, this is one in the rough still, and I haven't welded it. The one in the lathe right now, I welded this joint and kind of squared it up. And once I get this one welded, I'll kind of round this up a little bit more too, and then chuck it up in the lathe, and I'm trimming it out, and it'll be a done deal. And we probably lost about 30 or 40 thousandths worth of material doing that. Still incredibly strong, easily strong enough to handle the 150 pounds of the monitor mounting. So we're just about at the end of this pass. I think we've probably got another pass to take because it looks like there's a skip right there. Let's turn it off and have a look at it. Now there is a skip, but you know what? That could actually go to the top. I'm thinking we just square it up and get out of here. So we'll face off the end here. And it always makes a lot of noise. There we go. And we'll just keep pulling it down until it takes a full cut. You can hear it skip there. Beep, beep. Sounds like a bus backing up. And that'll be good enough because fact is one side's going to be a welded side anyhow, so it doesn't really matter. Now, what I think I want to do, no, I think I'm going to take it all the way. Not much further to go to take it all the way. Maybe. There it is. Yeah, that looks good. Now we'll come in and just chamfer that outside edge a little bit, and we'll be happy. Take a look at it. Chamfer isn't quite squared up, so that's better. Flip it around. Still pretty hot. And this edge has a little bit of a lip on it where I wasn't able quite to get the tool up right into that corner. So just come in and chamfer that, and it'll take the lip off, make everybody happy at the same time. Okay, so I've put a first bead on that, and there's a couple of shallow spots, so I need to come back and fill in those shallow spots before I put it on the lathe. Well, I'll tell you, this stainless steel arc rod is really hard to get going, but it does make a pretty good bead once it's up and running. So you saw that it was like, you know, a struggle to get that rod to take. But look at the bead, not bad. Not bad for stainless. All right. Looking inside, you can see the weld is still there, but you know it's just fine. I think we're going to do just fine. And also, I'm going to put this weld up at the very top of the sign, so it'll be up there about 9 feet. No one's ever going to see that. It'd just be my luck. The inspectors get a ladder and climb up there and have a look. But I don't think so. Now in this case, I want to take off as little material as possible. So I'm going to indicate this inside edge here, and so that I can get this adjusted so that when I cut the outside, it's going to match up with the inside as much as possible. And because I indicated the other one first, my indicator's all set up and ready to go. Which is always the biggest issue around indicating something. So, well, we've got a fair amount of movement here. Little tap with the hammer. We're down to about, now that big jump is, I think it's just a glitch in the metal. So we're just going with that area here, so it's not that, but this area here. So it looks to me like we're sitting at about 10 thousandths or so, which is just fine by this kind of standard. Let's snug it down and see what we got. I'd say we're running at about 10 thousandths. Now to confirm that, let's go ahead and crank it up. And spin it and look at that inside edge. It doesn't look that good on the edge, but you know, it's because there's a couple of little skips in there, and I think that's what's giving us trouble here. Okay, now we're going to come in and clean up that the outside perimeter. And once again, we're going to just barely take a cut, just so we don't grab anything too heavy. So that weld's sitting there, and there's all kinds of bumps, higher and lower. And this will set everything evenly, and then we come back into the second pass, we'll know exactly how much we're going to be cutting.